David lay still, his breathing slow and even, his body relaxed in the familiar pretense of sleep. But inside his mind raced. The bedroom was dimly lit by the soft glow of Jessica's phone screen. She sat on the edge of their bed, speaking in hushed tones. The words she whispered should have cut through him like a blade, but instead they crystallized into something far sharper. Just one last night before I leave him. A final betrayal, not just an affair, but a farewell gift to herself. David kept his eyes closed, steadying his heartbeat. If she suspected he was awake, she might lie, might cover her tracks. But she had already given him everything he needed to know. Just one last night, she thought she had won. She had no idea what was coming. As Jessica ended the call and slipped beneath the covers beside him, David focused on keeping his breathing rhythmic. He felt her presence, the same way he always had, but tonight, everything was different. The warmth of her body felt like an illusion, nothing more than the ghost of the woman she used to be. He waited until her breathing evened out, signaling sleep. Then, silently, he opened his eyes. David had never been the type to act on impulse. He was a planner, a strategist, and tonight, his patience would pay off. Slipping out of bed with the precision of a hunter, he moved to the hallway. He needed confirmation, a text, a date, a location. Something to cement her betrayal beyond a whispered phone call. David retrieved her phone from the charger. His hands were steady, his focus razor sharp. He knew her passcode, of course. Jessica was careless, arrogant. She assumed he never paid attention. But David had always been observant. A few swipes, a few taps, and there it was. A message thread with Ryan. Tomorrow, 8 p.m., the Lexington Hotel, room 512. His jaw clenched. The audacity, the sheer certainty that she could get away with this. He placed the phone back exactly as he had found it and walked to his study. This wasn't just about catching her. It was about making sure she knew in a way she would never forget that she had lost. A plan formed in his mind, clear and cold. By this time tomorrow, Jessica would walk into that hotel room expecting passion. Instead, she would find the one thing she could never manipulate, never sweet-talk her way out of. Her own destruction. And he would be there, waiting. The morning after Jessica's whispered betrayal, David played his role flawlessly. He woke up as if nothing had changed, stretching and groaning slightly as he turned toward her. She gave him a sleepy smile, the kind she used when she wanted to keep him wrapped around her finger. "Morning," she murmured, pressing a light kiss to his cheek. David's stomach churned, but he smiled back. "Morning, Jess." If she noticed anything off in his tone, she didn't show it. Jessica moved through the morning with ease, humming to herself as she sipped coffee, casually scrolling through her phone, the same phone that held the messages sealing her fate. David sat across from her, stirring sugar into his coffee, watching her the way he always did, but today, every detail sharpened. The way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the slight smirk she gave when she thought he wasn't looking. Confidence radiated off of her. She thought she was untouchable. He let her believe it. By noon, Jessica was making plans for the evening. She messaged a friend about drinks before heading to her spa appointment. It was a convenient cover. She even joked about David's predictability, how he'd never question her absence. David almost laughed. She truly had no idea. As soon as she left for work, he moved into action. The first step ensuring Ryan never made it to that hotel. Jessica had made things easy for him. Her arrogance left trails, a digital footprint he could exploit. With a few keystrokes, he crafted a message to Ryan from Jessica's number. "Change of plans. Room 609 instead of 512. See you there." David then used an anonymous number to send another message. "Urgent. Fraud alert on your credit card. Call us immediately to verify purchases or your account will be locked." Ryan was reckless. David had done his research. He was the type to panic over money. Within minutes, Ryan was on hold with a customer service rep who was nothing more than an automated loop. By the time he realized the call was a waste of time, it would already be too late. With Ryan out of the equation, David moved to phase 2. He booked a room at the Lexington Hotel, room 512, the very one Jessica believed would be waiting for her and her lover. He checked in under Ryan's name, ensuring all the details aligned perfectly. Every step had to be seamless. By evening, the final trap was set. Jessica got ready with more enthusiasm than she had shown in months. She picked out a sleek black dress, one David recognized as the one she wore when she wanted to impress someone. She spritzed on perfume, fluffed her hair, and took one last look in the mirror before turning to him. "Don't wait up for me, okay? This spa package includes a long massage, and I might just fall asleep in the relaxation lounge after." She was good, almost convincing. David leaned against the counter, watching her with amused detachment. "Enjoy yourself. She gave him a wink and walked out the door, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. David checked his watch, right on schedule. Tonight, Jessica thought she was walking into a night of passion. Instead, she was stepping into the moment she would regret for the rest of her life. Jessica stepped out of the cab and smoothed down the fabric of her dress, anticipation thrumming through her veins. The Lexington Hotel stood before her, sleek and modern, its golden lights reflecting off the damp pavement. This was it. One last night of stolen pleasure before she walked away from David for good. She walked through the revolving doors, her heels clicking against the marble floors of the grand lobby. The scent of polished wood and expensive cologne filled the air. She didn't hesitate. She knew exactly where she was going. Jessica had always prided herself on her ability to control a situation, to be the one calling the shots. David was predictable, dull, stuck in his ways. Ryan, on the other hand, he was excitement. He was the thrill she needed before she started fresh. She took the elevator to the 5th floor, her fingers twitching with excitement as she pressed the button. Room 512. She imagined Ryan waiting inside, a smug grin on his face, ready to pull her into his arms. She smiled to herself. The elevator doors slid open. She stepped out, making her way down the hallway. The plush carpet silenced her footsteps, but her heart pounded loud enough to make up for it. When she reached the door, she didn't knock. She had a key card. Sliding it through the lock, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was dimly lit, a lamp casting a soft golden glow over the space. Her breath hitched in her throat, the excitement peaking, but then something shifted. The air felt wrong. There was no warmth, no welcoming presence, no Ryan. And then she saw him, sitting in the chair by the window, legs crossed, fingers drumming lightly against the armrest. David? The smile died on her lips, her pulse skidding into panic. He looked calm, too calm. His eyes met hers, steady, unreadable. A folder rested on his lap, a single sheet of paper between his fingers. Her mouth went dry. Huh? What are you doing here? She asked, forcing a laugh, though her voice wavered. David didn't answer right away. Instead, he stood slowly, holding out the paper to her. She hesitated before taking it, her fingers shaking as she unfolded it. Divorce papers. The weight of the moment hit her like a tidal wave. Her mind raced for a way out, a way to spin this in her favor. David, save it, he said, his voice low and sharp, cutting through her excuses before they could even form. I know everything, Jessica. Every lie, every whisper, every pathetic excuse you've told yourself to justify this. She opened her mouth, but no words came. You thought you were in control, David continued, his eyes locked onto hers. You thought I was too blind, too weak to see it, but I've been watching, and now I'm done. Jessica's stomach twisted. She wasn't used to being powerless. She had spent years believing she could manipulate David, that he would always be there, a safety net no matter what. But there was nothing in his expression that suggested forgiveness. No anger, no heartbreak, just cold certainty. She swallowed hard. David, please, let's just talk about this. Talk? He let out a dry laugh. Like you talked to Ryan? Like you talked to your friends about how easy this would be? Jessica felt the walls closing in. She reached for his arm, but he stepped back. I already moved your things out, he said, his voice as steady as ever. You won't be coming home tonight. Or ever. Tears burned her eyes. David, you don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, he said. I understand that you lost everything tonight. She turned, fumbling for her phone. I wouldn't bother calling Ryan, David added, watching her every move. She froze. He's not coming. He never was. Jessica's world tilted. She opened her contacts, searched for Ryan's number and pressed call. The line went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Nothing. Panic clawed at her chest. She turned back to David, her mask of confidence shattered. What did you do? He shrugged. Ryan's a coward. It didn't take much to make him disappear. Jessica felt like she couldn't breathe. For the first time in years, she wasn't the one pulling the strings. She was the one trapped, played, discarded. David stepped past her, pausing just as he reached the door. He glanced back, his expression unreadable. You wanted freedom, Jessica. Congratulations, you got it. And with that, he walked out, leaving her standing in the wreckage of her own choices. Jessica stood frozen in the middle of the hotel room, her mind racing as the weight of what had just happened settled onto her shoulders like a lead blanket. This was supposed to be a night of indulgence, a final thrill before she walked away from David on her own terms. Instead, she had walked straight into a nightmare of her own making. She clutched her phone in her trembling hand, staring at Ryan's name on the screen. Blocked. He had disappeared just like that. as if he had never existed. Ha! Her chest tightened. Ryan wasn't supposed to run. He was supposed to be here, laughing at how easy it had been, whispering promises of a new life together. But now, there was nothing. Just silence. Her fingers hovered over the call log, hesitating before dialing again. Straight to voicemail. Jessica let out a sharp, uneven breath. She tried texting, "Where are you? Call me now." The message remained unread. Her pulse pounded against her temples. She never once considered the possibility that David, predictable, boring David, could outmaneuver her like this. He wasn't the type to make grand gestures, to fight for dominance. He was the quiet, dependable one, the man who had always put her first. Had she really underestimated him that much? Jessica turned slowly, taking in the room. The hotel suite, once a symbol of escape, now felt suffocating. The dim lighting cast eerie shadows across the furniture. The expensive champagne she had imagined sharing with Ryan sat untouched on the bedside table, mocking her. She sank onto the edge of the bed, gripping the divorce papers in her hands. David had planned this, every detail. She pictured him walking out, his back straight, his footsteps unhurried. He hadn't raised his voice, hadn't begged, hadn't pleaded. That was the worst part. He hadn't even seemed angry. He had been done with her before she even knew she was losing. The thought made her stomach turn. A fresh wave of panic gripped her. Her reputation, her security, her carefully constructed world. Jessica had spent years cultivating the perfect image, the devoted wife, the successful woman, the one who had it all. If word got out that she had not only been caught, but that she had been played, it would be humiliating. Her friends wouldn't stand by her, she knew that much. They'd smile to her face, then whisper behind her back. And David would move on. She could see it now, him walking away, rebuilding his life without her. Maybe with someone younger, someone grateful, someone who saw him for the steady, calculated man he truly was. The thought made her stomach churn. No, she wouldn't let this be the end. Jessica shot to her feet, grabbing her purse. She needed to fix this, to regain control. There was still time. She rushed to the door, heels clicking against the floor as she stepped out into the hallway. The soft murmur of voices from nearby rooms, the distant chime of the elevator, it all blurred together. She pressed a button impatiently, tapping her foot. When the door slid open, she stepped inside, breathing hard. She needed to find David. She would make him listen, make him understand. The elevator descended, each floor ticking by like a countdown to something she wasn't ready for. The door slid open and she stepped into the lobby, scanning the room. Her eyes darted from face to face, looking for that familiar presence. But David was gone. Her heart pounded harder. Jessica moved toward the front desk, her voice tight. The man who was in room 5 and 12, did he check out? The receptionist, a young woman with polite detachment, glanced at the computer screen. "Yes, ma'am. Checked out about 15 minutes ago." Jessica felt the world tilt slightly beneath her feet. He really had left. For good. Her hands curled into fists. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She stormed out of the hotel, the cool night air slapping against her skin. The city lights blurred as she reached for her phone again. One more time. She called David. Then voicemail. She swallowed the lump in her throat, forcing herself to leave a message. "David, please, don't do this. We need to talk. Just call me back." She ended the call, gripping the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. A part of her still believed he would listen. But deep down, a voice whispered the truth. David wasn't coming back. And for the first time, Jessica felt what it was like to be powerless, to be discarded, to be nothing more than a regret. Jessica sat in the back of the cab, staring blankly at the city lights flashing past the window. Her hands trembled in her lap, her phone resting between them like a dead weight. She had called David 3 more times, voicemail every single time. The realization crept in like a slow, suffocating fog. He wasn't just ignoring her. He was done. For the first time in years, Jessica felt small, trapped. There was no backup plan, no quick lie that could get her out of this. She had built her life on control, on knowing exactly how to manipulate every situation, every person around her. But David had played her. He had let her walk right into her own destruction. She bit her lip, her mind racing. She had to do damage control. Her friends, they would hear about this soon. Whispers would spread. Jessica got caught. David left her. She's alone now. I learned. The words sent a shiver down her spine. She needed someone. Her fingers hovered over Ryan's number before she realized how foolish it was. He had vanished. He wasn't going to answer. He had probably blocked her the second he got David's message. Coward. Jessica clenched her jaw and scrolled further through her contacts. Her best friend, Melissa. Maybe she could spin this into something salvageable. Maybe she could make David look like the villain, claim he had been controlling, distant, unfair, but as her thumb hovered over the call button, doubt crept in. Melissa had always liked David. More than once, she had warned Jessica about pushing too far, about taking him for granted. Would she even believe her? Jessica exhaled shakily and locked her phone. The cab pulled up to her building. She paid the driver without a word and stepped out onto the sidewalk. The night air was cool, crisp, but she felt suffocated. Her apartment was dark when she walked in, quiet, too quiet. For the first time, she wasn't coming home to someone who cared. No David, no excuses to fall back on, no plan. She dropped her purse onto the counter and leaned against it, her nails digging into the marble. This wasn't supposed to happen. She had convinced herself that she was the one in control, that David would always be waiting in the background, too weak to do anything but endure her betrayal. But she had miscalculated badly. Jessica pressed her palms against her temples. She could fix this. She had to. Maybe if she showed up at his office, maybe if she begged, if she cried, if she made him see how sorry she was. But then she remembered the look on his face in that hotel room. Calm, cold, unmoved. He wasn't going to take her back. Jessica felt something crack inside her for the first time. She truly understood what she had lost. And it was too late to get it back.